All right, Junkie Nation, got a special guest for you. History was made last night when Laura Sanko sat at the broadcast table. She was a color commentator in addition to being the in-ring announcer and, of course, doing the backstage interviews. What a night. Congrats, Laura Sanko. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. And again, congrats on that historic night last night at Dana White Contender Series.
Thank you. It was awesome. I was over the moon. I'm still floating on air. I still have, so many people to respond to and to get back to who have said really kind things, and a laundry list of people to thank for helping me, kind of get to that moment. And you guys are on that list, honestly, definitely on that list. I mean, I remember, when was it that we did that interview where I was sitting in my hotel room floor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was it last summer? I don't remember. It was last summer. It was 2 summers ago.
I think so.
It's all kind of a blur. This is something I've been talking about for a while, but honestly, I feel like when you guys put that interview up was really when kind of people, started going, oh, this is something she wants to do. Oh, what would this be like? Would that ever happen? The conversation really got started there. So I got to thank you guys for that.
Well, I love taking credit for things I don't do, but I can't, because Goz will check me. And it was his idea. It was his question. And you're right. It was about a year ago that we threw it in existence. That saying gets thrown around when you're talking to, younger kids and you're trying to mentor, give advice, or just say something nice. Throw it into existence.
Yeah.
Because those are the only way your dreams can become goals that you attain. And that's, goes through out there in existence, and you ran with it. It's not like you said, what are you talking about? That's crazy. You said you'd love to do it and that it was a dream of yours to do it. And last night it all snuck up on us. I mean, what a well-kept secret, by the way.
It snuck up on me. It was not a well-kept secret. I found out about it at like 5 or 6 o'clock the night before the fights. When I left Kansas City, and I packed my bag and I had done my research for the most part, still had a little bit left to do. I was coming to Dana White's Contender Series to do my normal, in-ring announcing and post-fight interview jobs. So I didn't find out about this until the night before. Wow.
Well, What was it like when you found out? I mean, I'm sure your jaw hit the floor, maybe a couple tears. What was that like?
Wild. So, to your point earlier, this is something I've been asking for even longer than before, you guys posed the question when we had that interview. It's been something I've been kind of saying, hey guys, this is something I would like to do in the future for years. And as I've grown and they've given me bigger roles, and really the weigh-in show was a big game changer for me, because it was the first time that they kind of dubbed me analyst and not host or reporter. But, when you're an analyst, you're someone who's there who knows the sport well enough to have an opinion about it. So it was the first time they kind of gave me the reins there, and then built myself up kind of holding my own with DC and the guys on that show. So anyway, like, things were building, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen for this season. I had asked for this and hadn't really gotten an answer, to be honest. And so usually when you don't get an answer, and the formats are kind of look like they're getting formulated, the answer is no. So I'll be honest, like, I left Kansas City not disappointed, because I love Contender Series, but I guess more determined than ever. I was like, man, I just got to blow them away. I got to continue to keep my head down and do this and do what I got to do. So speaking of, speaking or thinking things into existence, I was kind of in that negative space of feeling frustrated, and I was on the plane, and like, I was tired, and I had been recovering from a cold. So like, my head hurts and my nose is all stuffy. And like, I pulled my hood over my head, and I just sat there and like focused on being grateful for what I have already and what I've done already. And at the same time, trying to put myself in the feeling and the mode of like, what it would be like, what's it going to feel like when I do finally do this? Like, give myself those good feelings of joy and accomplishment. So for like an hour on the plane, I just sat there and kind of meditated. And maybe like 30 minutes before I landed, I got a text from Dana while I was in the air. And it just said, hey, are you in town? And my stomach dropped, because you never know, like, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or like, am I about to get fired for saying something crazy on the weigh-in show, or, I don't know. It can be any number of things, but I said, no, I'm not, but I land soon. He said, okay, come to my office as soon as you land. So I came to his office, and I was actually kind of worried I was going to miss him. At first, it looked like I wasn't going to get a chance to see him. He's a busy guy, but it worked out. And then I went up there, and he said, hey, we love what you've been doing. You've been killing it. Whether it's backstage reporting, killing it on the weigh-in show, killing it on Contender series, the quick hits is, through the roof in terms of viewers. You've done everything that, we've ever asked you to do. And we feel like you're a really critical part of the team. And, do you want to call these fights tomorrow? And I said, my literal words were, fuck yes, I do. I just started laughing. I was like, yes, of course I do. And he said, now listen, you can wait until next week if you want, because I know that we're springing this opportunity on you very last minute. It's tomorrow. I said, no. I got this. I'm no problem. No worries. You're in good hands. So that was how it played out.
That's awesome, because I can already tell you're blushing a little and you're tearing up. You're actually a great storyteller. Like I was on the edge of my seat listening to this. This is awesome, the way it all played out. And then, of course, typical Laura Sanko. Hell no, I ain't waiting until next week. Let's do this. I love it.
Yeah. And there were things that happened this year that I could never have. One day I'll have to write not a book, but maybe just a long article about really truly how all of the ups and downs of how this unfolded. But January 1st of this year, none of these things were remotely on the table, at least in my mind. They didn't feel like they were on the table. And I had a really long conversation with myself. And after that conversation, the weigh-in show happened. That came out of left field for me. And like I just said, it was a huge opportunity. And then the really key thing I feel like was when, and I don't like it when doors open for me because they close for another person. But when Pat Miletich left LFA, I don't know what I don't know what came over me, but I was like, dang, I think I could do that. I really want to do that. I want to help them. They need someone. I want to help them. And I called someone who had Ed Soares' number, and I texted Ed, and I was like, and I had met Ed before, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you know me that well, but I do color commentary for Invicta, and would love to come be part of it if that's on the table. That whole experience is a whole other thing, a whole other story that would take forever to tell. But long story short, they kind of said maybe, and then last minute again, the day before the fights, they're like, yeah, no, we want you. So I'm driving to Wichita. I didn't need to participate in the fighter meetings, didn't have any prep time. I'm watching fights on my phone. I roll up on half a day's notice and go out there and do that alongside Alan Joban, who I have to give a lot of credit for, and just Ron and the whole team there was fantastic. So doing that, I had another experience with Invicta, later the previous year, where day of they needed somebody because there was a COVID situation. So day of, I roll up and call 9 fights. So things like that happen. And I'll tell you what the Invicta opportunity in particular, I hesitated to do it, not because I didn't think I was capable, but because it would have been my first time being a color commentator. I'd done play-by-play before, but it would be my first time being a color commentator. And I know that the UFC pays attention to those broadcasts. And I knew that they would, at some point, watch part of it because they see the footage of the fighters who eventually make it to the UFC, if nothing else, but they're generally watching anyway. And I thought, man, I could really, what if I go out there and screw this up? Because they're calling me the day of the fights. I don't even know who's on the card. These are not fighters I'm familiar with. But something came over me and I was like, this is just an opportunity. You just have to do it. You just have to figure out a way to do it. And again, in that situation, excuse me, I kind of lost my voice. Credit to TJ DeSantis and Julie Kedzie for, really helping me there as well. Again, I didn't get to participate in the fighter meeting. So those things like that happened, and I forced myself to say yes, even though it was super scary, because it could have put me in a position to really mess up and look bad and ruin future opportunities. But I've always had a belief that, like, at the end of the day, I've been in this sport so long, for 14 years training, and I know I haven't competed as much as a lot of other people have, but I've been in the gym, I've been in the game, I've been around the game, and I've been talking about MMA, like I said, for 14 years. So I was like, no, we'll figure it out. We'll do it. And it's worked out every time. So yeah, just more last minute stuff. Let's just do everything last minute.
Nice. Laura, I remember you sharing a story where you said you did an audition and afterwards you cried because you felt like you didn't do well, but turned out you did do well. So that being said, after last night, how did you feel when you finally had a moment alone? How do you feel your performance was? We all felt it was fantastic, but we all know that we weren't in your shoes. How did you feel?
Yeah, honestly, I felt great. And I'm normally my biggest critic. And of course, I didn't, the ring announcing stuff got a little tricky because I was wearing so many hats and because information was relayed to me in a regardless. That was one moment that that wasn't great. But, other than that, the commentary, which is honestly what I really cared about, and the interviews, of course, I felt great. I felt like I belonged, and it helps so much to have guys like Dan Hellie and a partner like Paul Felder, who, Paul's a guy who I have always felt like from day one, I was there on his first day, when he did Contender Series, and then when he did his first fight night, I've been there with him on those moments. So I feel like he and I have kind of a built-in rapport where he knows I know my shit. Like, we've rolled together, there's a funny story about, like, when he first started, he was like, now remind me, because he's an incredible striker, but he's like, remind me, like, which is the Darce and which is the Anaconda, and like, when I'm watching it, how do I know what I'm like? He's like, I can do it, I just, when I see it. And so I was like, okay, arm in the armpit is a Darce, that's how I, just like silly things like that. So the fact that it was Paul was perfect for me, because I know that he's someone who respects my knowledge, and Dan is the same way. I've been with Dan from day one too. So it was the perfect team, and I felt great. I felt like I did really well, and I don't say this often, but yeah, I was happy.
I have to imagine that I'm going to put myself in your shoes. If I'm being told by Dana White, I know this is short notice, but can you do this tomorrow? I would imagine the first question out of my mouth after I say hell yeah is, so who's going to do the ring announcing and the backstage interviews? What happened when you found out you were going to do all three?
Well, he told me right then, he's like, now here's the deal. I want you to still do the post-fight interviews, because I really, I've always really liked your interview style. And, it also takes, to do immediate post-fight in octagon interviews is a little bit different even than doing the ESPN backstage stuff. To inject a little bit more knowledge of technique, I guess, into the questions. And he said, I've always appreciated how you do it. I really want you to still do that. And I wanted to still do it too. I was worried, to be honest, that they would want to take that piece of the pie away. But that's how it works on fight nights. The color commentator is the person who does the post-fight interviews. It was just the ring announcing. I was like, can we just maybe like take that part so that I have at least time? But it was so last minute. Of course, they didn't. And now that I've done it once and have the kinks figured out, screw it, I'll do all of it. It's fine. I can start running one of the cameras if they need me to.
Nice. So now that, we're not even 24 hours removed, but I'm sure you're getting flooded with all kinds of messages, friends, family, people in the industry. Is there one or a couple maybe that stood out to you, a message that maybe you weren't expecting?
Yeah, definitely. Like, there are so many that it's really hard for me to talk about how important they are individually. It would take forever, and they are all each incredibly important to me. There are a handful of people who behind the scenes have always been very encouraging to me in my pursuit of this, and even those people, I won't have time to name everybody, but like, I said this in an interview I did previously too, but I want to reiterate it. Julie Kedzie is one person who I feel like needs a huge thanks from me, because when I started in Invicta, I very much, like, I essentially took part of her job away from her. When Shannon called me and said, hey, we want to have you do post-fight interviews, and Julie will still do color commentary. Like, I was just this random girl that walked up and it was like, hey, I get to have half your job. I mean, I didn't say that, of course, but I'm sure that's how it felt to her. And I think it was tough at first, but she, over the past, many, many years, even before I was with the UFC, she has been my biggest, loudest, most brazen supporter. She goes to war for me on Twitter every time there's a fight night. Why is Laura not calling fights? Or sometimes it's much more like, oh my gosh, Laura just did this, and wouldn't she be great? Like, she is so pro. She truly supports other women. It's just important. It's super important. And she of all people, I should say, was one person who was in a position to feel threatened or to feel competitive toward me. And she never treated me that way. And I just will forever be grateful for her. Not only for that, but like her doing commentary before I ever thought of doing it. You know, she did it better and before I did it. And there are other women as well. I'm not going to be able to name them all that have been calling fights. I just am excited to be able to be the first under the Zuffa banner, and props to Kathy Long before Zuffa for calling UFC 1 as well. So there's a laundry list of people. Dana was very kind, you know, when he sent me a message today, which was really, I very much appreciate it. I'm going to end up taking up the whole show with, you know, reading my DMs. So we don't want that.
What about the fact that Dana White's Contender Series, you're one of the pillars there, right? From day one, we associate you with that show. What was it like, the fact that it happened there versus, say, another fight card, or did it just make it feel even more like it was home?
Yeah, no, it felt perfect. And I think it was the right way to kind of introduce me to fans in this way, because, listen, we all know that UFC fans can be a tough lot. I'm well aware of that. And, you know, this is a show where I have built-in credibility because I have been a part of it for every single episode from day one. And originally it was the UFC Fight Pass crowd before it was on ESPN Plus, are a diehard fan crowd. So most of them knew that I fought, or they knew me from Invicta and had seen other work I'd done. So the reception had always been positive. So it was kind of the perfect place to, you know, let's put her out there here. It's kind of her home. And I was happy that it happened there. But I'd be lying if I said that one day I hope to be able to do more. I mean, it feels greedy to talk like that, because I'm over the moon and loving this moment for what it is. But my nature, my competitive nature, my driven nature doesn't allow me to revel in these moments for too long, unfortunately.
To be specific, you meant like fight nights or a pay-per-view. Eventually, you got the lockdown on this season as a color commentator and in-ring announcer and post-fight interviewer and woman who doesn't stumble downstairs. You got all those on lock, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be really seasoned with the stuff you've done before, but this run, it happens so fast. It's like a tornado. It's inevitable. I anticipate seeing you on a fight night soon.
I hope so. I saw a tweet from Kevin Iole, actually, just like literally before we got on here. Someone sent it to me that it sounded like he had already chatted with Dana, and that maybe is the plan to maybe sooner rather than, I don't know. I don't want to talk about timing. I'm gonna enjoy this moment, but it sounds like that can be a thing.
Yeah. And back to those haters. Kevin Lee once told us, if you ain't got haters, you ain't popping. So let them hate.
That's
you know what I mean?
Let
them hate. They're most of the time, I think secretly they're really just fans and they're just having a go. But don't let that discourage you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't. It's been a trip. You know, I started this whole journey as a fan. You know, I was just a fan of MMA. I was watching MMA like everyone else on my couch. And then I was like, I should train. And then I was like, I should fight. And then I was telling this to someone else. My first time covering MMA technically was in 2010. I started back when Titan FC was always in Kansas City, and I was fighting as an amateur. I think I had a couple amateur fights at that point. I don't remember the name of the blog, and it's killing me, but I basically talked someone into like, hey, if you get with Titan Ice FC and they let me sit cage side, I will do a written blow-by-blow recap of the Titan fights that you can put up on your blog for people who weren't able to come to the fights. I'm sure that they were horribly written. I'm sure it was of zero value to anybody. But that's like, I've always had the hustle to do stuff so that I could be even more ingrained in this sport that I love so much and have for so long. Yeah. Well,
now we know you can write. We know you can talk. Can you read? No, I'm just kidding. That's an inside joke.
It's questionable. It's questionable.
Wow. Well, we don't have to wait long for the next broadcast featuring Laura Sanko as an analyst. That's so awesome to just say congratulations. You're probably going to move a lot of young ladies out there, a lot of young girls, the same way I felt Doris Burke did it when she started calling for games in the NBA. So
she was an inspiration to me. She was a huge inspiration to me. That the idea that someone who didn't play in the NBA can still talk about the NBA very intelligently, very articulately.
She's awesome.
And can contribute to the conversation. So yeah, I go Doris.
Another one of my favorites is Susie Colbert for the NFL. She is tremendous. I mean, tremendous.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure you got a lot of other people to catch up with. Thank you for separating some time for us.
Of course.
And hopefully we can preview some fights now as this season unveils itself. Thanks again, Laura, for the time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.